But yes, without further ado, we have Pedro.
I don't know how long the talk should be. Okay. Oh, thank you. So, hi, I'm Pedro. I made the art for Celeste, and this is going to be a general postmortem explaining generally how we did things in Celeste and the things that we learned and how kind of we do things now in general. This is actually I think the third time I do this talk, but this time is recorded, so I hope it will be the last. Let's see. Okay, so before anything, a little bit about myself. I'm Pedro Medeiros at Saint11 Twitter, Mastodon, and everything. I am mostly a pixel artist. I think you might know also from me from some tutorials that I posted online. So yeah, but I also do some high resolution art, even like 3D and programming and everything, a little bit of everything. But again, focus on the art. I'll play the trailer for Celeste really quick, just so we. Oh no, I don't think you're going to play. Well, I think you did. Okay. Just so we know, like, oh, it's not. Is it showing? No. Well, okay. Who here played or know of Celeste? Oh, okay, okay. It's going. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah. So Celeste, it's a pixel art platformer. This is like the final game, right? And what we got in the end was this very, very low resolution game with like precision platforming. And we have this high resolution UI. We have a lot of effects. We're not really going for nostalgia in the style of the game. And you can see there's like a lot of colors and everything. So just to see like what was like an overview of what we got in the end. The whole process I divided it into like 3 parts. The Pico 8 version of the game, which is basically a prototype of the game. The pre-production, where we basically decided things on how things were going to work and how the characters should look and everything. And then the production, when we were just like making a lot of content. Let's start with the Pico 8. Pico 8 was it's a fantasy console where many know they made a game jam version of the game. Basically, like they started by making this 4-day prototype, which was actually very fun and successful and everything. And the good thing, like, and after that, we decided to make this into like a full game. And having this prototype was really useful because because we already nailed like the basic elements of the game. So first, we knew it's going to be a platformer. They're going to be jumping and dashing. We knew like the main conflict of the game would be like against like environmental mechanics, like balloons, pits, spikes, stuff like that. And we also knew like the general like vibe of the game. So it's going to be very surreal. Like the levels don't really make sense. Like this is not a mountain, right? And we also knew we really like the hair physics that we had there. And you also know you're going to be like very fast and precise. So starting from that, or any prototype is always like a good idea. For pre-production, some companies, especially big ones, they usually have like this chunk of time they have before the game development for pre-production, right? We didn't really do that. Our style is usually like game design first, everything else second. So what happens is we have like some pre-production to get the style and the vibe and everything. And then we start doing game design and development of a game. And then we keep going back to pre-production basically and rethinking things and imagining things. And from that, like, because if we plan everything ahead, like, And then we find out like 5 weeks into development that spikes are not really cool. And now we did all the things to justify spikes, then we have to go back and change. So basically, story and aesthetics, they follow the design, and design keeps changing, so you can't do like too much reproduction. The things we knew by the start, we knew the game was going to be 320 by 180. We had just said that. We knew the collider of the character. We knew about the skill. We're going to have a story. We wanted the game to also be like accessible, not only accessible from the point of accessibility, but also we wanted the game to look friendly. We didn't want like something that's too, like you're going to die a lot in this game. You die, but it's still like kind of fun, right? We don't want to like to scare players away. And we also knew that we're going to have like lots and lots of rooms, like tons of content. We started with, this is actually by Noel. When I got into the project, we already have that, which is like the first sketches of the character and the colors and everything based on the Pico 8 prototype. And from that, I did like a concept sheet. And that's like, I always work like that. I always have like a huge file with where I dump like a bunch of images one after the other. This way I can see and compare my characters' designs one to the previous one and kind of see which one works better with the silhouette and which one works better for the game. And sometimes I usually have even like a screenshot of the area that I'm working on. So, and we decided on that one. Actually, kind of hard to see there, but she has a face there. On the original concept, we have a face in her. But the thing is, like the game is, yeah, this is the final one. The game talks a lot about mental health. It's very emotional and everything. So we wanted the player to be able to project themselves a little bit more in the character. And we wanted to take advantage of the very low resolution. And because when you see her there, I see a different thing than you, because you imagine something. Your brain fills the gaps of the pixels. And that's kind of why we went for like this lower resolution, this style. That's why I like pixel art so much. Because like when you see the sign, when you see the lamp, like the version of the lamp that comes into your head is completely different than mine. And that's why, like, I think sometimes it's better to not over detail in this style. For creating characters, especially the other characters, I work very closely with Mora. And our process, I call it like a non-linear concept art. It's basically like, usually I start with a pixel art thing. That one, again, is no, the first one on the top left. And then Amora makes like a concept art of that character. And then I do another version of that same character in pixel art again. And then she looks at that pixel art and then does another concept. And then we keep doing that until we're both happy with it. Because the thing is, especially when working with heavy limitations like that, sometimes some things just don't work. Oshiro had a lot of iterations like that because, for example, like the pink nose there, you can see that Oshiro has the pink nose there. Maybe on the original concept, Amora wouldn't just put a pink nose there, but works really well to track the animation. So I needed to have something there. So that's why it's important for the concept art and like the actual art in game to talk a lot and keep going on this back and forth. Animation, it's another important thing too. It's very choppy on the projector. But what we wanted there is like fluidity and having like a lot of very like flowy movement. We wanted something very modern, again, not really going for the retro aspect of it. So we needed like a lot of frames. So what I did is like the whole thing has like a very low color count. It is not a hard limit like you would have like in a Nintendo, like an old Nintendo game or something. It's just something to help me be able to make frames faster. basically. Another thing I always had in mind when working on the animations, like we were very lucky to work with Power Up. They were great. Oh, you're there. Yeah. So so the sounds of the game were also very important. So all animations that we were making were, I was always thinking about the sound. So I was always trying to add things to have opportunities for sound, like things hitting on the ground, like puffs of smoke. So things that they could just add sound to it. And again, just because everything around, to make everything more expressive. And then we hit the consistency problem because we wanted to add UI and text and everything. And our first impulse was to have like, well, maybe let's do the UI in pixel art. And then that causes a few problems to us, like sometimes the text was hard to read, sometimes the portraits were getting very pixelated in a weird way. So what should we do? The first idea was, let's go with full consistency. Skytorn, we were doing that. Towerfall, we did that, and it has some good points to that. Like, it looks authentic and nostalgic, but again, nostalgia, it was not the thing where we're going for this in this game. It is faster, but again, you can adjust. You just can't just resize stuff a lot. So, and it's very hard to localize, especially like when you have to change the alphabet itself. Finding alphabets in pixel art is very hard. So we went with a different approach. We decided the way to keep consistency for this is to almost like quarantine each world of the game in its own style. Let's say like we have like the game world where everything in the game takes place, basically the pixel art world, let's say. There's the UI world where you can see like the portraits, all the collectibles, like saving icons, everything. And the map, which is 3D, because why not? Yeah, since you're already mixing stuff. And the thing is, you can have as many styles as you want, as long as they don't directly like contaminate each other, basically. So even like I have like this problem in Earthblade recently. I was making a character, and I can't spoil too much, but like the character had like an icon on their head at some point. And my first impulse was to draw that icon in pixel art. It's just a thing. But then that would implicate that character has a thing floating above his head in the game world. See, because it's pixel art, he's pixel art. That's all. The thing should be in actual world. So we had to scrap that and change this icon to like a high resolution thing. So basically, you can never cross-contaminate the resolutions. If you do that, you're fine. The problem with that, you have to draw everything sometimes more than once, and that's the thing that comes with the territory. Basically, the crystal heart in game, the crystal heart when you pick it up, and the crystal heart in the map. So 3 styles for the same thing. And after you kind of set those rules, you can start breaking them. This is again a Moral's art, which is really good. And she, like battling at some point in the game, crawls out of the portrait and looks at the pixel art version of Madeline. And that's really scary because she's breaking the rule that we so consistently have been keeping true. Yeah, that's what we ended up with. So it's no faces. We use portraits for expressions and everything. The art itself, I think, like I said, the thing about like allowing the player to complete the image, I think it's mostly inspired by impressionist art, like Monet and stuff like that, because, and I think that's really powerful. I think that's a thing that's sometimes underrated in pixel art. People don't use pixel art for that much, and that's what we're going for. And yeah, that's like the general thing we ended up in the end. I don't think it's like the only correct approach. I think every game has their own goals. Like if a game is going for a more retro aspect, that's perfectly valid. If a game want to mix completely everything, like Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, they mix high resolution and mix a lot, and that works really well. So I think as long as you have your own rules and you follow them, or when you break them like with purpose, then I think that's fine. And now I'll bore you a little bit with the production aspect of it, which is the more technical aspect, and that's where things change the most, because the way we did in Celeste, we were still learning. I think it was pretty good, but it had a lot of things that could be automated, and that's what we did basically. But I think it's still valid to explain how we did it, just because it might be interesting to show how you can automate stuff and how you can make it better. The way we did it before, I worked on a program called Sprite, which is a really good pixel art editor. I love it. And the way I would do, like I would draw in it, and then I would export everything into PNG files. And then I would write this XML file there, which has origin, all the animations, and all the frames for those animations, if loops or not, and stuff like that. And then the C# script would read that XML file, find the things in the atlas, put them in order, and play for the player. And that's it. It is not terribly complicated, but that's not how we do anymore. This is for another side project that I'm working on called Road to Goocrest. and the way Earthblade works very similar too. The way we do it is basically, I work on Sprite still. I have all my animations there, everything, the frames are all there. And the actual engine looks for the Sprite file, puts them in the atlas, makes the description for all animations, and then you can just play it. And that's it. Our engine for Road to Goocrest is so focused on having this automation that I think we don't even support PNG files. It's just Sprite, and that's it. That saves us so much time, especially and for the artists. I think it's very useful to also be able to like hot reload the images, right? Like if you can play the game and just change something on Sprite, save the file, and go back to the game, and the thing changed, that's like a huge deal, because you can adjust things a lot. Because in Celeste, even like in Towerfall, I think it was worse. I had to close the whole game and rebuild the whole thing every time I change, like the smallest thing. So and what happened in the end, I would sometimes I would just not change stuff because I wouldn't have time. I was like, this would look better, but I guess maybe next time I compile the game. So having the ability to change things in runtime is like very, very valuable. Tile sets in Celeste were also a big deal because there were going to be so many levels. We couldn't possibly have to hand place them, so they're all auto-tiled. We had like 32 tile variations. The way we did is basically inside each tile is like the collider, and these are all the possible edges. Again, this is cool, especially for like a very small tile like that, but that's not how we do it anymore. Again, this is Ogmo Editor, where Medi made most of the levels, and most of all the levels. And that's how it looked with the colliders and props and stuff. New editor, usually I think it's good to have like a live preview too of the tile that you place. Again, that's the thing that changed. And the thing that we do now is it's called dual grid. I won't explain in detail here because it's a bit complicated, but you should Google that if you're doing tile sets that are not like that. I think it's because you only need 15 tiles and you can pretty much make every single combination possible. But the thing is, the colliders here, they are not on the tile, they're offset. Oh my God, no. They're offset half a tile. So the collision is here, and the collision is here, here. So, and then you can just assemble it. Again, if you want to implement this, it's so much easier. And the cool thing, you can do stuff like that, which is for top-down, is extremely valuable, which is you can have tiles that are bigger than the collider, which is, again, kind of weird, kind of, when you start drawing like that, you're like, what I'm doing? But after a while, like, okay, you get it. And it's, again, a huge time saver, and you can make more variation like that. So, yeah. Another thing that's very, very useful, and I think it's like mostly like the soul of our games, basically, which is props and decals, which are things that are just unique images that you can just stamp on the game. Having a system for quickly placing those is, like, again, very valuable and adds a lot of personality to the levels. I would just draw so much stuff and can just put them as landmarks. Also really good for guiding the players in the sense that, oh, I'm at the room with the giant plane, so you remember that place. If it's just a bunch of tiles, even if you make the tiles with the best variations possible, they will still be kind of repetitive, and you won't really remember stuff. Oh, this is a cool thing. Like, I wasn't the only one placing the tiles. So, for example, I made these two stalactites, and then just made that, like, just like stamped like a bunch of them one on top of each other, and created this, like, basically this new prop, which is also cool. So, which means, like, it's always good to have more people on the team placing that, not only the artist, because you can come up with new things that you're not expecting. And finally, background and foreground. This is the one that changed the least. Before we did with XML descriptor, but the idea is basically the same. We would have like layers and layers of images on parallax, particles, and colors that change, stuff like that, simple animations. And we'll describe them on the XML file there. The thing that changed the most, that's an Earthblade screenshot. It's that now we do that in the UI, and you have better controls. And another thing that actually helped a lot is we have live preview. I can change the background, press a button, and see it in the game very quickly, instead of having to run the whole thing again. But other than that, it's just, again, very useful to have for the artists to be able to layer a bunch of stuff on the background and then just press a button and see it. And we have Madeline's hair. That's a video, I won't play. But everyone, I think, remembers. Madeline has the hair that follows her. And that's a sprite for the hair, actually, just a circle. That's another thing. If you're doing a game that's like very low resolution, like Celeste, you can just abuse the pixel art. Pixel art is very forgiving for stuff. So you can just have things like that. It's just like a bunch of circles that follow her around. And effects like that are very easy to make. So yeah, that's, I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, now we can do some questions. So if you have a question, put your hand up and I'll come over with the mic.
I just want to say thanks for those pixel art tutorials. They are super awesome. And quick question on those, because you were making a lot of tutorials over time. Was that something you were doing in your off time, or were you actually building some of those tutorials to help other artists at your studio?
I started with, I think someone tweeted, oh, how do I make shiny stuff on like Sword or something? And like, oh, it's like this. And I did like a quick tutorial just to explain. And I think people really like that. And I was like, oh, I can do more. And just I started just making a bunch. I think I'm also like, I really like when educational stuff is very like easily available and freely available for everyone, because I'm from Brazil. And it was very hard sometimes to get access to some information, and learning pixel art, again, is another field that's kind of hard to find information around. There's no, I don't know. I mean, there was like, I read a bunch of art books, but I never found a pixel art book back then. So I think I was trying to kind of have somewhere where people could refer to and have, okay, how do people do anti-aliasing in pixel art? And then, oh, there's this thing here. So I just tried to do like as many tutorials as I could just to kind of archive those things and help as many people as I possibly can there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. Other question?
I want to second the thank you for the pixel art tutorials. That was my first experience in pixel art. What I'm quickly finding out when trying pixel art is that it's deceptively complicated, even when it looks quite simple. And for me, mostly there's a lot of technical things that go into it, mostly with the size of the sprites, the size of the tile sets, and the size of the screen that you're going to be playing on. And you mentioned that in Celeste, you pretty quickly decided on what those numbers were. So I was curious on you as an artist, how you kind of decide what the size of everything is going to be and how that fits with your art style.
For us, it was all because of the Switch, Nintendo Switch. Because the Nintendo Switch is, I don't remember the resolution, I think it's 128 by 740. Yeah, no. The thing is, I wanted the game to be pixel perfect on the Switch, and I was dividing it, and then I could do 320 by 180 or 640 by 320. I guess I don't know, better math. But the thing is, there is like a sweet spot there, because with pixel art, the smaller you go, actually the harder it gets. If you're trying to show a character in 2 by 2, you can't. I mean, you can. It's like 2 pixels tall. That's it. But like as you grow the sprite, you start to have more. It becomes less of a puzzle. It becomes more of a little more of a. It's like an art thing. So you can just express yourself better. But when the resolution gets too big, you get like just a lot of work. It's exponentially harder. Like in the sense that it's exponentially more work. So to make like a bunch of frames like for an animation, if the sprite is too large, it's going to take a month. So we were like trying to see like where on the resolution we were going to stop, and then 320 by 180 was the one that was like, okay, I can do this. Like in time-wise, I mean, I have the time to work on this because it's very small, so that's good. And I think I can deal with the puzzle aspect of it. And that's where we stopped. And that's how I usually decided. And after that, I kind of, I don't know, I think I specialize in that specific resolution. Now, every single game I make, it's the resolution. And I just love 320 by 180.
Thank you.
Hey, Pedro. My name's Cole. My name's Cole. I wanted to ask, what engine was Celeste made in?
It was a custom engine, but it was built on top of the framework of Monogame. Actually, FNA specifically. I think it's FNA for consoles and Monogame for Windows. It's one of the other, but they're kind of similar. Same thing with pretty much everything we did.
For the art specifically, did you need to optimize it in any way, like save performance?
Performance. I always in the back of my mind, and when I'm drawing stuff, I'm like, oh, I need to save performance, because before, like a long time ago, I would like do like Flash games, and those were very slow. But nowadays, trying to optimize art is actually bad, especially when you do pixel art. It's just because you shouldn't, because if you're trying to do like optimize a sprite that's 16 by 16, like your computer handles 4096 pixels like so easily. They don't even notice if you left like some alpha hanging there, right? It's fine. So in the end, no, I'm actively trying not to optimize, but I keep sometimes I get myself no, I don't think I'll leave so much empty space and stuff like that. But it's always good custom, like it's good to like trim your atlas and stuff like that, but nothing specifically.
Thank you.
Actually, there's one aspect that we actually optimized basically around a little bit the pixel art, which is the physics. The physics of Celeste are pixel perfect, and for having that physics, there are those physics that are very precise that way. When we use, if we scale the game too much, it would get a little slow. That's the only thing.
Hi, I was just wondering about the palette and how you came up with it for Celeste.
All right, so palettes, I always start with like, no, this game I'm going to do a limited palette thing. I'm going to do like very organized, and I choose my palette. Second week, I don't even remember where I put that file. And then I just start adding colors. But the thing that I'm trying to do more is that I'm working on those big, when I'm making the game, I usually have one file or a couple files, which is like my concept file. And I have a bunch of art in there, like all the ideas and everything. And every time I need a new color, I kind of get from another sprite. Or, I mean, I just get like a palette from the available colors there. And when I just can't, then I add a new color. That's how I usually do. I don't plan it too much. I usually have like a couple iterations of like a few mockups. I just do like 4 or 5 mockups before starting a game. And from those mockups, I usually get my palette. But again, it's not terribly organized. Some games, like there's a side project that I was working on. It's called Scars. It's like a medical game, and that one has like a very hard limited palette. It is a random number. I think it's like 34 colors or something like that. But yeah, that I decided a little earlier. And the side project, that one had like a very hard color limitation. That one I actually stopped. I was like, okay, I want a palette. And then I did a little mock-up, and I decided like 8 colors, 4 colors for the main thing, and 4 weird colors for contrast. And that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering why you guys decided against like going for a retro look while still doing pixel art, and like what you chose to do like deliberately from that mindset.
Yeah, I love retro games in general. I grew up on Nintendo games and stuff like that. Actually, I grew up in DOS games more than anything. But the thing is, I feel that sometimes like pixel art is like I said, like a little underutilized for other stuff. Because I feel that games are this cool medium where you make like half the piece, like you have like half authorship of your piece, and the player has the other half or something like that. And I feel that pixel art visually is something like that. You have half authorship of whatever you draw, and the person seeing that has the other half, right? Like I said, what you see is not what I see, and I think that's really cool. And I wanted to focus more on that, and just, I don't know, get like a new experience or something like that. Because I think Tower Fall was a little bit more retro. That's what we were going for. But I don't think the payoff like of to being retro, at least for me, wasn't that great. I mean, it's cool. People, I remember that, but I like when it's like, well, I connect with that. That's interesting too. But again, nothing against retro. I love retro.
Thank you.
Hello. As a software developer, do you have any advice for any other software developers or game designers who have very little art experience for collaborating with other artists?
Yeah. First, in general, artists are very bad at automating stuff, right? I don't know. I see a bunch of friends that work with art, and they are doing stuff like you showed, like exporting everything as a single frame and then putting everything in the thing. well, sometimes it's useful to help them to like, wait, what does the software that you use save? Like, is that a binary file? I can read that. Can I just put that in the engine? You know, like save time, basically. That's good. Also help people to be able to see everything, like in live previews. Is the least amount of friction between drawing and seeing the thing in the game is the best thing ever. Earthblade, we even have like a screenshot tool that just takes a screenshot in real resolution, so I can just see a scene in the game, screenshot, open that scene in Sprite, draw on top, and then go back, and we can just place the thing there. So that's like so good. Things like that is very useful. But you're asking for you drawing, like you're starting to draw, or just for helping artists in general?
I was initially thinking for helping out in general.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think tools for making things where you see something, you want to change something, it's very fast and very easy. That's the main thing, right? And also, I think it's very important for the artists to be able to build their game in their computer and run the whole thing. They need to have access to the repository. I think it's usually bad when we have an artist that I mean, it's better for the artists to have like just the build. You get an Excel file or something and just run it. And you know, it's good for you to have access to the actual thing and understand a little bit of the sides of the game, basically, right?
Thank you.
Hi. You just mentioned talking about like access to the repository, right? When I'm working on like collaborative projects with artists and such, I found like using version control really difficult for them to work with, especially since a lot of them are geared towards software developers. What do you use, and or what do you guys use?
We use Git in general. Yeah, it's at the EXOK. It's very chaotic. We almost don't do branches. So we're very messy, but it gets the work done. It's just because I think we work constantly in this game jam mode, which are just dumping assets everywhere. But in general, I don't know. I think it's when you have no choice, well, then give them the build. But I think it's good to try to educate your fellow artists and explain like the very basics of, okay, this is a good thing. You can pull, you can push. So like, because that adds a lot, because then they can be more proactive and just see, I don't know, the artist can start to find things that they can change that make the game better more easily, basically, right? If you get access to the files, so it's faster, you get always the latest version, and yeah.
Thank you.
Looking around. Ooh, here, okay.
Is there a reason why you landed with Ace Sprite?
I tried a bunch of those. I used Graphics Gale before. It's really good. But honestly, I think the tool is just like a tool. If you're comfortable with, I mean, one of my favorite pixel artists, Deceiver, he uses MS Paint, and that's it. And I know he uses a mouse too, and he makes just one of the best pixel art I've ever seen in my life. I know that what's the name of the guy? I don't know a guy that uses like a literal DOS program to animate stuff, and it works. But for me, I really like it, right? Because it just has so many features for game development specifically. So I have like tags, I have slices, I have really good color management. I can have scripts for Lua scripts and everything. So yeah, it's like, I feel it's like a very modern and very focused software for game development art. So yeah, I kind of wish even like Clip Studio was more like Ace Sprite sometimes. So stuff like when I'm drawing like high resolution, I always miss a little bit of those like game development optimizations for Sprite. And the sprite file format is great because you can read that in engine. It's like it's very easy to read. Like I wrote my importer. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one last question over here.
Hi there. Was there any challenges creating or implementing a 3D world into like a smaller aspect ratio? And also to the part of that question, was there any like pushback within the team to not add 3D into it?
The 3D part actually wasn't me that made the model. I think I was involved in the decision of it, but the aspect ratio of Celeste is kind of wide. Like it works well. I mean, there was no technical limitations like big ones. It was just just put the model there and it kind of worked. Didn't do much stuff. There was some we had some help with the shader, with the model and everything, but in the end it was fine. I think I think before on the second level, before the mountain, we had like actually a 3D background that was like spinning cube at some point. No one actually knew what that was in the team. We're just like, let's put a cube in the background. I don't know. I mean, we were not very organized with those stuff. The only thing I was very like worried about consistency all the time. That's the only thing. I was like, no, you can't. But if someone was against the 3D mount, it would be me. But since it was like separated, was just the map, then I was fine with it. But again, different words.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Pedro.
Thank you.